Hi and welcome to the Zing, where we get to enjoy breaking down the action of some of our favourite recent fight nights. And we're going to start with an absolute cracker, which was the first card of the year for UAE Warriors on UFC Fight Pass. And what was interesting about that off the bat was it was on UFC Fight Pass after widely shared fake news that the platform was dropping Warriors. Obviously, that didn't happen, and thankfully UAE Warriors 67 did, because it had everything, frankly. Some great finishes, a bit of controversy, lots of stars in attendance in Abu Dhabi. One VIP who was there with me was Karl Keller. And Karl, I'm pretty sure your pick for fight of the night might be the same as mine, which is the flyweight bout between Vagabov and Adilov. And it all came down to the third and final round, didn't it?
I mean, I don't know if I can accept the title of VIP, Simon, but thank you very much. Purely just a fan who has the best job in the world. That fight was amazing. And I know that you did mention the judging criteria and how it was judged in the end, and was there a winner, was there a loser? And it's just so difficult, to be honest with you. But you have to look at the judging criteria of the fights itself. You know, effectively, it is surrounded by damage. Damage is the one thing we have to look for. Effective striking and effective grappling. Then only do we move on to the other criteria, which are effective aggression, cage, and ring control, things like that. But when you look at both fighters at the end of the fight, who had more damage, I think it's quite clear.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched that final round several times, and I'm still not sure who takes it. I mean, there were interesting scorecards, let's say the least. I've actually got the original scorecards that Michael Vell, the announcer, wrote down at the judges' table. And this is what he read off. So judge number one, in the top left there, it scored it 30-27 for the blue corner, Sanzhar Adilov. The second judge scored exactly the same, but for the other opponent, Rashid Vagabov, 30-27, red corner. So the third judge, who for me is kind of like the one person who kind of like got it pretty close, scored it 29-28 for Vagabov. And for me, perhaps it all came down to that third round, that late flurry of activity. I mean, first round, how a judge, honestly, Karl, scores that first round for Vagabov 30-27, I've no idea. I mean, 10-9, I've no idea.
No, I don't agree with that.
And how someone else can score the second round for Adilov instead of Vagabov, because, I mean, that was Rashid came back superbly in that second round. I don't know how you can score it against him.
Yes. I was fully in alignment with Judge 3. I had round one 9-10 to Adilov, and then the second and third rounds both to Vagabov, coming out with a 29-28 score to Vagabov. So, I've just recently done the refereeing and judging courses to just further my knowledge with Mark Goddard, and it gave me a great deal of insight into the refereeing criteria and all of the standards that go along with it, which arguably is one of the hardest jobs in the business. But yeah, I had it 29-28 Vagabov. I do think that the scorecards were correct as they read out in finality. Given the other two judges, there would be discrepancies there. But 29-28 Vagabov for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was a great fight either way. It wouldn't have been a robbery if it had gone to Sanzhar Adilov. I thought he looked sensational.
Yes.
It was the toughest fight of his career. Vagabov, hungry to get back into the UFC after getting cut after the Contender Series. What do you think's next for both fighters, Karl?
Let's see. I mean, Vagabov's on the radar. He's got an exciting style. He's 15-2. He's 27 years old. Like, the world is his oyster at that point. Like, you've got a great team behind you. He's on the radar. Like, he could get the call up at any point in time. As far as Adilov goes, 14-3-1, 29 years old, still an amazing record. But coming off of a loss, you're not on anyone's radar. Like, you're not going to get that big call up unless you get that win in your corner. He took a big risk here. He fought a very, very, very competent opponent, clearly. But it's going to take some time. He needs to get in the win column before he gets that big call up. So I'm not telling, if I was managing him, I wouldn't be telling him to take an easy fight. But I'd tell him to take a very, very winnable fight where he can display, the exact same thing he displayed in this fight. He was sound. He was aggressive. He was on the front foot. He was doing a very good job. But he just came out a little bit low. And I mean, I don't want to be ridiculous here, but that fight could have been called a draw. And that could change the landscape for both of their entire careers. But it didn't. And so now he needs to go back to the drawing board, get in the win column. Like I said, 14-3-1, 29 years old. He's in his prime. The world is his oyster.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Well, let's move on to the main event between two former UFC veterans, Tom Breese and Caio Machado, which ended quite quickly with a TKO win for the Brazilian Bigfoot, didn't it?
Yes. Yes, it did. And it was, it's always interesting when you see those two guys that are both veterans of the UFC. They both know what they can do. They both know what they're capable of. And then you just see one guy get a little bit outclassed in a certain range. And I think you mentioned it was that step back left hand in that first exchange that just kind of sent Tom a little bit wobbly. And then there was some discrepancy with the strikes on the ground. What did you think about that?
Yeah, that's the thing, particularly after you've just come from Mark's refereeing course. I mean, about how clean Caio's shots were in the beginning of that ground and pound. I mean, some fans online have been incensed. And, obviously you and I just seeing it now, once we're at home. But on the night, the director, he wouldn't, for some reason, give us the replay. I spoke to all three. When I spoke to Sam after the fight, he said that immediately Tom was turning his head into the shots. Then I spoke to Tom in the bus on the way home. And by the way, it's too early for you to retire, Dominic. Don't even think about that. And he said that, there were a lot of illegal shots from his point of view. He said there were a lot of illegal shots. And then I spoke to Caio in the lift on the way to the breakfast in the hotel the next morning. And he said they were all completely clean. So at the end of the day, all you've got is the angle from the camera, but it's still really, I think the first shot certainly looked illegal, but from the camera angle, it's difficult to know if all the follow-up ones were. And at the end of the day, I can only, as a commentator or journalist, without being given the replay on the night, I can only go and speak to everyone involved, and they all tell me, Caio and Sam said the same thing, but Tom was like, no. But he was upset on the way back from the, it's understandable, But yeah, it's hard. It's not, the replay wasn't that great, got to be honest.
Yeah, the interesting point you have to look for is, I guess it is difficult because the referee understands more than any of us can possibly understand. He's the one who's actually seeing that point of impact. So even when an elbow, even when an elbow is wrapping in around the side of someone's head. So say you've got somebody down in quarter position, you've got a leg tie through, and you're ripping elbows on the far side of their head. The back of your tricep might be contacting the back of the head, which would be an illegal zone. But the tip of your elbow might be contacting near the ear. So it's so difficult to understand where the brunt force of that impact is going and what are you targeting at the time. So it's just such a difficult aspect. And we all know the tomahawk rule across the top of the ears, 2-inch measurement all the way up the spine to the crown of the head. As long as you're contacting the ears, it's generally a legal blow. That back of the head area is pretty small. And I can't say that I saw Tom turning his head away from the shots by any means. I saw him covering up. I saw a lot of the shots landing off the gloves that were in a legal area. So it's really hard to say, to be honest with you, but it comes down to the referee's discretion. So I guess it's just,
Sam's the man. You got to trust him at the end of the day. He's the ultimate arbiter there,
You have to trust those guys. It's just such a difficult part of the game, and it is there for the fighter's safety. It's there for the fighter's safety. But do I think that those shots were what ended the fight? I can't say so.
Well, the question is, how is Tom ending up in that position in the first place? That's the other issue. How is Tom being swept there? Because Caio's got his left overhook, and he drives his left hip over and through, but a guy with Breese's grappling, Carl, I don't think should be getting reversed there.
Now, what you have to look at, though, Simon, is the intricacy of that sweep. Okay? Like, if you watch it down in slow motion, you'll see that Caio elevates, but he also traps the left arm of Breese with his own right arm to negate any post from Breese whatsoever. Like a normal half-guard sweep like that, Tom's just going to post his left arm out and stop that sweep, no problem. But you notice that Caio sits there, he waits, he abides his time, and as soon as Tom lifts his hips a little bit, he bumps over his right shoulder, using his head as a post, and he traps that left arm of Breese, negating that sweep. So he made it look effortless, and he made it look like a bit of a big brother move. But it was beautifully, beautifully executed.
Yeah, we're going to, hopefully Tom comes back and gets over his disappointment. He's a quality guy. And
there's way more in the tank there for Tom.
And we're going to have some breaking news about Caio Machado in about a week or two. So many teasers coming. I mean, okay, I've seen aspects of the next card at UAE Warriors 68 and 69 in LA at the end of March, and it is mad. It's absolutely.
And that's a double header as well, isn't it?
It is a double header. A couple of titles on that line. That's all I can say at the moment. I think there's 3 titles at the moment up for grabs. But
Go on, keep us antsy.
I will. So that's another first round finish on the main card. Actually, went to Mukhamed Berkhamov, and that was his first stoppage win since Bellator 268 in Arizona in 2021, and he looked Carl in ominous form.
Yes. I mean, he really did. He looked confident. He looked like a man who walked in knowing that he was as prepared as humanly possible for this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he just dominated Loureiro. And this is the other thing, though. Loureiro touching down from an intercontinental west to east multi-leg flight just a few hours before weigh-in. And it's not the promotion's fault at all. It was a very late replacement. But that's a massive disadvantage. And he got absolutely mauled by Berkhamov. Carl, surely Warriors could offer Loureiro another bout with a decent camp and a build-up week in Abu Dhabi before fight night next time?
I would say that is well earned. Like, if you're willing to take a chance like that, come in, you're jet lagged, you're cutting weight, you're fighting a weight class up, the cards are completely stacked against you, and he still came in there and put on a very, very entertaining first round. He wasn't backing away. You know, there was no timidity whatsoever to his performance. He wanted to get in there. He wanted to strike. He wanted to bang. He was just outclassed by somebody who had a full training camp.
So it was great to have Sofiane Boukichou back in Abu Dhabi. He fought in the UAE 9 years ago and pulled off a great come from behind win at UAE Warriors 67 against a very dangerous Dagestani in Gadzhi Abdulkadirov. A great come from behind win, Carl.
Yeah, Boukichou just seems like a pure fighter. Like, when you watch him strike, his chin's way up in the air, but he's just looking for that moment. I think that's what comes along with being a very savvy veteran. I mean, 13-9-1. He's probably hasn't made the best decisions with matchups throughout his career because he's clearly very talented. Coming up against a 6-3 Abdulkadirov, you know, this is definitely like the young up-and-comer kind of taking on the veteran who's experienced, but it's a smart fight for both of them, I think. But Boukichou just bided his time. He was clearly down on the scorecards and then just cracked that cheeky veteran knee and completely changed the script of the entire fight. And even what he said to us after the fight, I think he came over to the commentary booth and just said, anything can happen. And it takes a veteran like that to be through those wars and understand the fact that, like, yeah, I might be down on the scorecards, but it's only going to take me one. It might take you 25, but it's only going to take me one. And he showed that. It was downright impressive.
Yeah, but to be honest, I mean, I was so happy for him. I love the guy. I get on so well with him. I think he's like the most cosmopolitan man in the UAE Warriors. But until those 2 knees turned it around, honestly not sure working the outside and getting hit a lot was a good game plan for Sofiane.
No, having a great chin is a necessity of the sport, but it's not exactly something you want to be known for. You know, it's not exactly like Chris Lieben. Yeah, he could take 1,000,000 shots to the head, but probably not something you want, at the top of your highlight list. But he took them, and I don't know if it was something where he saw that opening for the knee, or he got lucky with it, or, maybe Abdulkadirov was dipping his head on some of his shots, and he was like, oh, I can clinch him here and drop that knee, or if it was just something that happened. It's such a game of variables that it's so difficult to predict what they were thinking in their heads, or if they were thinking at all. It was a heck of a fight, though, heck of a turnaround, and honestly, I don't know. I kind of like seeing something like that at this point in Boukichou's career, because it kind of gives him that element of, I still got it.
Yeah.
And where's he going to go from here?
Yeah, no, he's still got it. It'll awesome dude. It'd be great to see him back as soon as possible. He's been away too long. So explain this one to me, Karl. Yusup Magomedov escapes a ninja choke by some kind of black magic. He doesn't just become the first person to beat Sharapudin Ziyaudinov. He becomes the first person to dominate him, and he does it without having his hands wrapped. So explain how he did all of that.
Okay. The escape from that ninja choke, I watched it like 5 times. There was no technical escape there. He crawled over, he trapped up half guard from top, and I mean, essentially, if you trap up half guard from top there, you are locking yourself into that position a little bit. You do create some leverage where you can peel your head out, but peeling your head out of a fully locked up ninja choke is like trying to pull your head out of a bear trap while being winched to a tree. It doesn't really make any sense. So my only thought there is that the opponent decided, I don't want to blow my arms out on this. This guy's not going to sleep on this. He doesn't really have a neck to choke. He's jacked. And he must have just let it go, I guess. I don't really get it. As far as the non-hand wrapping thing goes, that's a personal preference. A lot of guys feel that when they wrap their hands in an MMA glove, they don't have as good of utilization of their grips. And their grips will burn out a lot because you're trying to fight against that tape in order to close your grips. And clearly coming into this fight, his game plan was to grapple and grapple hard. So perhaps he just wanted all that grip strength and the free movement of his hands, and that's why he didn't wrap them. Because, I mean, aside from, cracking ground and pound shots and things like that, he wasn't too wild with the hands at all. So it could have been just a sense of, this is what's going to be best for my game plan.
Yeah, great fight. Dude's a beast. Let's move on to Benita van Rooij from Os in the Netherlands. Showed how to bounce back from her only career loss by tucking Zulfiya Kurbashove up in bed in a very impressive first round submission.
Yeah, this one was, I'm not going to lie, a bit tough to watch. Kurbashove is one of those people that you kind of root for. She doesn't have the typical crazy build of an MMA fighter. She seems very respectful. I don't want to say timid by any means, but she walks softly. And she obviously took this fight on very, very short notice against Van Rooij, and it did not go her way once again. So that's 3 losses in UAE Warriors, but she's taking just too hard of fights, in my opinion, Simon.
Yeah, particularly that one against Benita at such short notice. I mean, whoever's taking care of her career then should probably pull her up a bit and build her confidence back up and not throw in with highly competitive individuals like Benita van Rooij at such short notice.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more on that one, just because, and I'm not sure, like, we can't read into the mind of a fighter. So many people do this for so many different reasons. Some people do it for, their own self-challenge. Some people do it for the paycheck. Some people do it just because they have nothing else to do. But with Kurbashove, I think she needs to understand why she's doing this. If she took that fight on short notice just to make, the money that she made, then, maybe it's worth it to her to help her family. And she went to sleep. She didn't get knocked out cold. She didn't sacrifice her brain. She went night-night. She went out on her sword. But I would just love to see her take a couple decent fights that are more evenly matched to build her career. Like, I would love to see that, because she has something. You can see when she stands on the outside, her hands are beautiful. But when she gets put up against the cage, but against a much larger and much more prepared opponent, she has nothing to offer.
Interesting angle if you put your referee's hat back on again then, Karl. Rosalind Ferreira's refereeing, for me, was top draw. And I see it every time she referees. Just great positioning awareness. I think she's one of the best emerging referees from the Middle East. But you'd expect that perhaps from someone who has 7 national Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu titles and has 5 stripes on her black belt, 16 gold medals in total, having been an integral part of the Gavião Jiu-Jitsu team in Lagoa Santa. So, but really, again, superb refereeing from Rosalind Ferreira.
Yeah, and I can't argue with her at all on the cage grab situations. One thing I think she did beautifully was she took a point on the cage grab from Kurbashove, but she didn't sacrifice position for Van Rooij. If she would have separated that, put him back on the cage, she didn't stop the action for it. She recognized it. She realized it didn't progressed the situation for Kurbashova far too much, and she wanted to let Van Rooij continue on her path to victory. So I think she did a really, really good job of managing that situation. Back to what you're saying, though, with like refereeing jiu-jitsu and refereeing MMA, they're completely different. Completely different, like, skill sets, rule sets, everything. So for Rosalind to identify that cage grab under those circumstances and the high pressure and call it perfectly, I think it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was very, very impressive. She continues, for me, to be one of the fastest growing talents in refereeing, particularly in the Middle East. So we were promised something special with Aïssi Bassala from Cameroon, but you probably knew, Karl Keller, how special that left hand would be.
I mean, I can't say that I knew how special the left hand would be. I can say that I know how special Bassala is. I trained with him for about a good year, not one-on-one by any means, because he would absolutely murder me. But I've seen him in the gym. I've seen his candor. I've seen his respect, and I've seen his self-belief throughout kind of him growing throughout the sport a little bit. And I was extremely impressed. I was extremely impressed at his composure, his ability to not pounce when it could have been a little bit too early, his ability to set up his shots, defend the takedowns, separate, even got taken down at one point and seamlessly got back to his feet into his wheelhouse where he wanted the fight to take place. And then, of course, that left-hand bomber that just floored it. Clearly, I think the celebration could have been dumbed down a little bit, but, sometimes the emotions get the best of us.
Yeah, what for me was, it's great to have the finish for a new talent, but his management of space, he just seemed so comfortable in that. Like you said, he was confident, but the way he controlled his space in the cage was really confident, and that of a real veteran, actually.
Yeah, he keeps his hips back very nicely. He knew that Rakhmonov was going to be looking for that takedown, so kept his hips back in a slightly more boxing stance, but legs still accessible, and it was really just a flawless debut for him. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that as a debut fighter. I think Rakhmonov was 1-1 going into that. Obviously, it was Bassala's debut, so it was well matched. Obviously, his opponent more experienced than him, but it turned out beautifully for Bassala. And, I don't think it could have happened to a nicer person.
Yeah, great talent. Great to have him. Hope to see him back soon. Another strong finish on the undercard. Went to Murad Ibragimov. 3 minutes went by, Karl, and then boom, another great left hand, actually. But Ibragimov had been setting that one up for some time, hadn't he?
Yes, he was dropping a lot of shots to the body in order to bring that guard of Basarak down, which is the age-old thing, shoot low, shoot low, shoot low, get the reactions there, and shoot high. And it panned out, but, we can't overlook, as we spoke about, the weight difference and the weight cut. What was he, 4.5 pounds over?
4.5 pounds exactly over on the scale. Fined 40% of his purse. A massive miss. Did it give him an advantage?
Well, there's so much that goes into a missed weight. There's so many ways you have to look at it. Did he get into his weight cut and then realize, oh my God, there's no chance I'm going to make this. I can get as close as I want to. Maybe he could have lost 2 more pounds and only lost 20% of his purse. But what damage would he do to his performance in doing so? So it comes down to the fighter's choice. So it's difficult for us to say. I mean, what, 4.5 pounds being 2 kilos, is that going to make the biggest difference in the world? Probably not. Probably not, to be honest with you. How much more power are you hitting somebody with? But if Ibragimov didn't really deplete himself so hard, and Basarak did to make that weight, now Basarak is screwed. He's having trouble in there. He's going to feel that depletion. Whereas if Ibragimov pulled the plug early enough, and said, listen, I'm not going to make the weight anyway. I really don't care about the money. Let's put on a good performance. That is where it creates a big advantage for him. Does that make sense?
It makes sense completely. But you and I were at the scale for the early morning weigh-ins at 8 a.m. in the hotel, and he was the one weight miss on the entire card. And even then, you and I were commentating, saying, "Look, he looks pretty knackered." I'm not sure if it was. But he should be fighting a different weight class, shouldn't he? Frankly.
Yeah, he did look fairly depleted. He either needs to put on some mass and go up a little bit to make the higher weight class a bit more attainable for him, or he needs to lose a bit of muscle. And you can take one look at the guy and say, there's no more fat on there. Like, he will not make that weight. Like 4.5 pounds, you can see 4.5 pounds on a lot of people. There's a lot of people on this card that could probably go down a weight class, but Ibrahimov certainly cannot. Like, he's going to have to make some dietary adjustments, change his physical composition a little bit in order to kind of solidify where he wants to compete and progress throughout his career.
Well, that's a wrap of UAE Warriors 67. We're out there at 68 and 69 for a doubleheader in the ancient oasis city of Al Ain on the 27th and 28th of March. A couple of incredible matchups that we're going to announce and run through the next time you and I chat, Carl. Thanks for now. Check out the next Zing from Cape Town as we go from the biggest promotion in the Middle East to the biggest promotion in Africa as EFC kicks off their season a little earlier this year, actually, on the 26th of February in their old stomping grounds of Grand West in the Mother City for EFC 131. And it's one of their best lineups in quite some time. So let's take a quick look at the bouts. You can see straight away there's 4 title fights, which I think after being in business for 16 years is the most the EFC have ever had in one night. The main event sees local lad Luke Michael put his 185-pound strap on the line against CIT's Diego Bandu. Dricus Duplessis will be in Pangaman's corner. The co-main features Cape hero Faiz Jacobs defending his bantamweight title against the highly experienced freestyle fighter from Oz, Trent Girdham. Martin van Staden continues to heal from injury, so the interim lightweight belt is up for grabs between the Mother City Matador Adrian Sanchez and Jefferson Pereira from the Pitbull Brothers. And the culmination in the promotion's flyweight Grand Prix has the Ultimate Fighter Season 33's Tamala Manyamala take on the Zulu Warrior Ntando Zondi for the vacant 125-pound belt. And kicking off all this main card is the ridiculously entertaining Terence Balelo facing another Pitbull from Rio Grande do Norte, Cleberson Salsa. So if you want all the fight breakdowns from Cape Town, hit that subscribe button and leave your comments about today's show below. We'll see you from the southern tip of Africa next. Thanks for watching today. Cheers for now.